Welcome to the Darkstream, Vox Day, voxday.net, and unauthorized.tv. So thanks for tuning in. Been a little bit since we've had an actual just Darkstream only stream. There's no real particular politics or anything I want to discuss. To be honest, after hunting through some old posts, in light of the recent discovery that DeepSeek was making up some of Carl Denninger's posts, going back and looking at all the posts on the blog between November and January 2020, they just seem so pointless now, so irrelevant. So I think in general, I'd prefer to try to avoid spending too much time talking about, thinking about, writing about ephemeral politics, because while they draw our attention now, they don't actually tend to be very significant over time. I mean, who really cares about John McCain, political candidate now? Nobody does. The only reason that we remember his name in the slightest is because we call upon it to mock neocons who are advocating for the same stuff that he's doing. Now, that doesn't mean we should ignore what's going on in the world. Not at all. I think it's relevant to post about the fact that the very architects of the 2014 Orange Revolution are now apparently planning to inspire and launch another coup to get rid of the character that they put in there in the first place. We have to pay attention to that stuff because that's part of the pattern. But the individuals, they come and go. Now, granted, it would have been important to pay attention to what was going on had Trump done what a lot of us thought he might do, and had he crossed the Rubicon. Instead, we've got this crazy system with at least two Trumps. Nobody knows what's going on. Today, the Epstein files are being released. Tomorrow, they never existed in the first place. And then next week, they'll be condemning Trump himself. I mean, I don't really think there's a lot to be gained from paying close attention to that because we don't know what's going on. And what's revealed tomorrow is completely turns every interpretation from today on its head. So I think it's more important to pay attention to the broader schemes. For example, I think the most significant thing that's happened in a while is the fact that the LDP lost its grip on the two houses, the upper house and the lower house, the equivalent of the Senate and the House of Representatives, and they finally have a proper Japan First party that the young people are flocking to. Why do Japanese politics matter in a way that U.S. politics don't? Because U.S. politics don't really change anything. No matter who gets elected, whether Obama's the president, whether Reagan's the president, whether Trump's the president, the U.S. is going to support Israel, and the U.S. is going to have a bee in its bonnet about Russia and China. What we have is more the illusion of change than actual change. But in Japan, what we are seeing is, I think, the first signs of actual change, which are going to be manifested when Japan moves away from the United States and completely changes the balance of power in Asia and therefore the world. That's the kind of stuff that I think it makes sense to pay attention to. That's the kind of stuff that I think it makes sense to talk about. So today I'm probably going to talk a little bit more about some of the stuff that we've learned about artificial intelligence recently. You know, everything's been so go, go, go. Things have been changing so fast and so rapidly with the technology that, as you would expect, our expectations of it, our understanding of it, have gotten a bit carried away. And one thing that experience with Carl's blog and the way that DeepSeek had made up a link, invented a link, when it didn't have to. You know, I mean, we understand in theory why an AI might make up a legal case when it can't find a precedent that it wants. I mean, if lawyers were allowed to do it, they absolutely would do that. Lawyers all the time already cite irrelevant legal cases to claim precedent for what they want to argue. AI is just taking it a step further and inventing it, right? And so, but the thing is that it makes sense that it's invented because it wasn't there, right? But what was disturbing about the thing with Carl, and to a lesser extent the reference to me, was that even though it got the sentiment right, it didn't get the post right. It didn't get the date right. And the dates and the posts are all right there. So why didn't it simply cite the stuff that was there? And that's where we see the real limitation of AI. And that's where we see what I was talking about today on the blog, or what the guy was talking about that I linked to. I guess it was on the blog, it was on AI Central. But, and if you're not paying attention to AI Central, I would encourage you to give it a try. It might not be your area of interest, but there's a lot of really good discussions going on. And frankly, I'm a little astonished at how rapidly the views are taking off. I mean, it's getting 5,000 views a day now, which is very unusual for something that's only been around for about a month. In fact, it was for one of the first times Sigma Game and AI Central actually had more traffic than VP this week. So that's interesting. And VP traffic hasn't dropped off. It's still kind of humming along at the same level. But obviously there's people with those specific interests, and it's good that they're, you know, if that's their interest, then it's good that they got a place to view it and discuss it. Anyhow, as this guy was pointing out, it's not enough, for most jobs, it's not enough to look good. It's not enough to have it be mostly okay. You know, you actually have to get the job done. You actually have to, when you're making books, it's not good enough to be close. If you're off even a little bit on the spine, it looks wrong and you can't sell the book. On that vein, actually, I do have something to show you. I'm going to show you that now. And this I'm kind of pleased about. Most of you probably already know this, but I got these pictures yesterday evening, and these are the pictures of A Sea of Skulls, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And the one on the left is Volume 1, the one on the right is Volume 2, and they are, of course, in goat skin as well. So this is the cowhide, and this is the goat skin. I was briefly tempted to do it in pigskin, but then they wouldn't match. So, you know, for the real diehards, I will probably arrange to do a set in pigskin for myself, if no one else. But for the diehards who want it in pigskin, we'll probably do it in pigskin at some point in time. Hello from Skydog's truck. Missing Texas says they're beautiful, and Taryn thinks the blue is fantastic. Now here's what I'm talking about. One of the things that I was very concerned about because of the mishap with the Aristotles is that we needed to make sure that this was lined up properly. We need, when the hubs are sitting next to each other on the shelf, they need to look good. They need to be in a line. And so I was very happy. I was a little concerned when I saw this picture because I'm like, okay, both of the Sea of Skulls volumes line up properly. That's good. But why didn't they send a picture with the older books? I know they kept copies for reference. And so I emailed and said, hey, would you send me a picture of some of the older books? And this is A Throne of Bones and A Sea of Skulls together. You can see that we've improved our spine art a bit. We put the elf girl on and then the ruined tower, both representational of things in the story. And then of course for the covers we've got the elf girl's bow and arrow and the skull of the dragon, similar to the one that was on the cover of the hardcover. But I was very relieved to see this. Sumo Helvetica obviously goes with it. Those are going to look great on the shelf. And for high-end deluxe collectible books, looking great on the shelf is, to some extent, their raison d'etre. So it's important to us. It's probably important to the collectors. There's plenty of people that read these. In fact, John De La Rose is excited because he absolutely refused to read it there. Kajia says, was not subscribed in time for first editions. We'll buy them when second editions come out for sure. I think there's still a few left, honestly. Are we sold out of A Throne of Bones? And Suma, we might be sold out of Suma. I don't know if we are or not. But we're close to being sold out, but anyhow. But yeah, we will do a second edition at some point. There's no question about that. So there's no rush. But anyhow, the point is that you have to do the final 10%. You have to be precise. And that's exactly what AI cannot do. And it's very frustrating because it is possible to lock it down after the fact, ex post facto. When I was using Suno 3.0 and Suno 3.5, it was maddening because it wouldn't follow the directions. NDM expresses, because yeah, it says it's not sold out yet. So if you want to pick up a copy, you can, and as a subscriber, you get the same price that the subscribers paid. So anyhow, the point is that AI can't do that last 10%. So it's really good on the creative arts. Why? Because with creative arts, complete precision doesn't matter. At the end of the day, does it matter if the note at the end of the song goes up or down? It might matter in terms of the preference of the composer, but it doesn't matter in terms of the functionality of the song. As irritating as it is, John De La Rose drives him crazy when the tools that he's using pop in, when it pops in what he calls alogisms, which is just certain phrases that for whatever reason the AI seems to like. He said that Claude's V4 Sonnet, for some reason, likes to talk about how things smell a lot. I haven't seen that. In fact, we're trying to figure out what's going on because he's seeing these things, and then I sent him my documents and they're not there. So he's getting it, but I'm not. But another example is the way that if you do lyrics on Suno, it will absolutely stick the word neon in there. It loves the word neon. I have no idea why. It was kind of funny. Somebody was experimenting with it for the first time, and I said, how many times did it put the word neon in there in your first, AI generated song? And he said, oh, it's called Neon Dreams. Now, the thing is, neon is appropriate sometime. If you're doing like techno cyberpunk stuff, I mean, how do you do a Neil Gibson inspired song without talking about neon, In that song Chiba City Blues that's up in the Voxophonic section, I'm sure there's at least one in there that I put in, But the thing is that it shouldn't be in there every single song, every single time. So that's kind of amusing. Now I'm going to show you something here that is kind of wild. And I've started using a new system. I use Bing for all my Sigma game, and AI Central images. So every post I put up at Sigma game has at least one. But it's very limited. I like it. I like the way it looks. It makes great headers for the article, right? But there's not much more you can do with it. So one of the things that we're really interested in is figuring out how we can eventually use them for comics. And not only comics, but how we can use them for illustrations. Cactus Eater Bear says, no way. I made some songs for Bearfest, and one was Neon Hayfield. I told you. It's that predictable. Needless to say, AI lyricist not ready for prime time. But that being said, it's really interesting to see what you can do with training. Now this was the absolute minimum training, but we have a new book that's going to be published soon, and I believe you may have heard me mention this, but Chuck Dixon has finished a new novel. It's really good. It's even better than those non-existent Conan novels that never existed, in a very real and legal sense. But I thought, what would be cool is if we could throw some illustrations in there. But it's not the kind of project that really justifies spending a whole ton of money, and we're already getting we already have a really good artist who's doing the cover. So I thought, well, do you want me to give see if we can give the AI a whack, see what it can do. And it actually did something quite amazing. Let me pop that up. No, actually, I'm not going to show it because that'll give it away. What we have here is I trained it with one of our some of the art that we've purchased, style of one of our artists, and the results were, despite the minimal training, were really excellent. And so you might be able to guess which style was used for the training, but this is a product of the AI. Now it's not quite correct, but it's still pretty good, and you can probably imagine the style. And then here's another one, kind of alarming actually, in that it would have been a really good image without it was supposed to be like this guy bursting through the door, and then like a scared little girl being rescued. Terrence says it smells like Midnight's War. Actually, it's not. What it is Alt Hero Q. Now, this was, like I said, this was the absolute minimal training. I think it was like with 12 images or something. So it wasn't very sophisticated, but it still gave pretty good results. It's going to be really interesting because I was giving very simple prompts, very, very simple prompts. And so I'm going to try giving it some much more complicated prompts later tonight and see what it's able to do. And then, of course, the next thing would be to train it much more heavily, train it with, 100 images and see if it's able to really nail a style or not. So, because we know it already can do Frank Frazetta style, it does Michael Whalen style. You might have seen that on the blog. Let me see if I think I've got an image here I can pop up. This to me was absolutely astonishing, just in terms of the quality. This is where I just said, people need to stop. People just need to stop talking about, it can't do this and it can't do this because, okay, that was not the one I wanted. Okay, this was a very good one, but this was it was a little too Taylor Swifty, but it was definitely a good effort. But I wanted to try to do something that could actually be potentially confused with the actual image of the Snow Queen and the Summer Queen. And let me see if I can, there we are. This actually looks like it could be, absolutely could be a painting. I'm certain that there are probably some experts out there who are capable of explaining why, it isn't, how they can recognize it being, not being an actual painting and so forth. But the reality is that in some ways it actually looks better than the real images. And now there's still other challenges, in terms of animation, in terms of character consistency and that sort of thing that prevent us from really being able to use it. But when you consider the fact that that is possible, it's a complete game changer. And so it's those of us in the creative arts that do have to have some concerns about being replaced, but not necessarily, because if you're good, there's always going to be a demand for the real thing. In much the same way that there is demand, right now, why on earth would you pay $150, $250, $500 for a book when you can just download a pirate EPUB and read the thing? Well, because it's ephemeral. Because it's not really yours. Because you don't have that satisfying sense of ownership. You don't have the ability to pass it down, to give it to someone else. For me, I learned that kind of the hard way. It was really disturbing to realize how ephemeral my career in computer games was. I loved computer games. I absolutely loved them, like I've loved very, very few things in my life. And I wanted to be a computer game designer more than anything. I wanted to be a computer game designer more than I wanted to be a rock star, And, because being a rock star was on the table. We had the record deal. They wanted us to go on tour. They wanted us to play at Lollapalooza. They wanted us to warm up for Nine Inch Nails and Thrill Kill Cult and all those cool bands. And I was like, no, I want to make computer games. And the funny thing is, even though Rebel Moon Rising was respectably received, got 3 stars and some nice critical praise from Computer Gaming World, made us a ton of money. Made us well over $1 million profit. We had such big profit sharing one year that all of our employees got paid more in bonuses than in their annual salaries. Think about that. And we were like 28. We really thought the sky was the limit at that point. And for some of us, it was. For Blizzard, it was. For Epic, it was. For Fenris Wolf, it was not. We made some bad choices. And in fairness, we had some absolutely horrendous luck. I mean, when 2 of your top programmers die of cancer, and both of your big publishers that signed you to $1 million contracts both go out of business within 6 months, and then you're looking back, and it was crazy because there are people who today, and even 10 years ago, would literally deny that I had anything to do with the game industry. I was like, what are you talking about? You could go and talk to Jensen Huang of NVIDIA. He'll tell you who I am. You could talk to Richard Garrett, John Romero. So what? And that's why doing books now is so massively satisfying, because they're going to survive. They're going to live. They're not going to be gone and forgotten in 10 years. Kajia says, are your games gettable now? Yes. It's kind of like with Psykosonic, that way it feels. I don't know what you mean by that. Are you saying that the Psykosonic thing seems ephemeral? I think music's a little bit less ephemeral, just because people listen to it decades later. People generally don't go back and play games just because of the march of technology moving on. But speaking of Psykosonic, we'll address that. We'll address that in a few minutes. But I do think that there. First of all, you may have noticed that you can now follow Psykosonic on Substack, which I recommend. I don't know. I don't know that we will actually end up, finishing stuff and turning it out, but it is looking that way. And I mean, it's not an accident that some of the music that I've been working on here, and I'm going to play one track tonight before we go. It's not an accident that some of my stuff is more techno flavored. I'm still working on the next Soul Sigma album, by the way, and I'm still working on some other projects. In fact, this is funny. I actually got asked to work on a track with a professional musician, a pretty big name audio guy, and he asked me to work with him on a track for something. So that's interesting. And then of course we've got stuff related to the movies, but I can't play any of that now, as much as I'd like to. Terrence says, I hope so. I keep bragging up Soul Sigma at work. Oh, I've already got pretty much the whole next album done. I'll do a little crowdfund for it, but not until I get everything out to the backers. And in fact, I think I just got an email from the CD guy. Oh no, that's something else. Yeah, I've already got the music uploaded to the CD, and there's going to be at least the one bonus track. I've got to get Girls Love Guitars out to all you guys. But the next album is called it's going to be called Byronics, and it's all Byron inspired stuff. Will there be a Psykosonic Easter egg in the new Mortal Kombat movie? I have no idea. I doubt it, but you never know. So I'm guessing that they're going with like a whole new soundtrack would be my guess. But we were in both. They did have us in both the other ones, so you never know. But anyhow, Kajia says, never heard of your games nor Psykosonic prior to Darkstreams, and it's a shame. Yeah, well, that's the way it goes. I mean, I was shocked when I went online, I started digging around, and I was a big Enigma fan. I love Enigma. And I actually own both the first CD, whatever, MC, whatever, it's named after, like 1990, whatever, or whatever the name is. I own that one, the one with Sadness on it. And then I also own the Cross of Changes, which wasn't quite as popular, but was very nearly as good. And one day I was just like thinking, I wonder what happened to Enigma. And I look up and they've got like 7 more CDs. So I go out and I start listening to them, and they're really good. But the way that the record industry works and the way that the music industry works is that they constantly push, the new crap on you with the same old names, so it's all Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande, and then they throw a little bit of classics with Rolling Stones or Human League. For some reason, the Foreigner song that has survived the passage of time is I Want to Know What Love Is, not Jukebox Hero. How does that happen? Jukebox Hero was the song back in the day. and even something like, Journey, Don't Stop Believing, that became huge again because of Glee. But Journey had other songs that were just as big that you never hear. But the fact that you haven't heard of Psykosonic at all is mostly our fault because we didn't stick together as a band or as a brand. But we're gonna have to, Paul and I were talking, we're gonna have to work out the math, because we figured that between all the movies and the games that one member of the band's music has been in, that our band was probably one of the bigger bands of the 90s. And through the 2010s. That may sound like an absolutely ridiculous statement, but it's not when you look at the games that Paul did, the games that I did, the fact that we had our stuff in the movies, in the Nintendo game, and then Dan did like 30 to 50 TV show and movie soundtracks. And the funny thing is, he was still using my lyrics in some of the songs, which not only do I not object to, I'm very pleased by, but like, for example, there was a show called La Femme Nikita. It was a show about a female assassin, and he did the theme song for that, which was called, it was something called like, don't forget the it was called Loaded Gun. And of course that's from the phrase in Techno Jihad. Yeah, I noticed that a number of the stuff was there. In fact, we gotta play this. We gotta play this now. I'm gonna play a bit of one of Dan's tracks that I love. He kind of went like more industrial, I would say. But it was so good. Let me see if I can find this here. I can never remember what I save his stuff on. Oh, here we go. So here we go.
Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Bite my bottom lip to remind myself I'm in fact something so delectable. Am I dreaming? Am I sleeping? Am I breathing still? And if I slipped into a nightmare that is tangible, who would wake me up to tell me none of this is real? Are we dreaming? Are we sleeping? Are we breathing still? Make the room spin like a carousel. Don't stop because it tortures me so beautiful. Are we dreaming? Are we sleeping? Are we breathing still? Inhale, exhale. Violate yourself and take it all away. Inhale, exhale. Take it all, this isn't happening.
I mean, I would recognize Dan anywhere. I heard that song. I was like, that's Dan. I mean, the funny thing is that wah, 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 wah. It actually sounds like an unreleased song that we did called Chiba City Blues. I redid the theme, but it doesn't sound anything like it. It was, Mike, the drummer, who, by the way, was the most successful out of all of us, much to everyone's surprise. I mean, he was the young stoner living in my basement. And he does the music for us. He does a great job. Rebel Moon Rising's soundtrack has been named, one of the great soundtracks by a number of people, and it is a really good soundtrack. But he gets hired by Epic after we shut down, and so he did Gears of War, he did Fortnite, he did all the big Epic games. He did the later Unreal stuff, not the original Unreal stuff, but the later Unreal stuff. Paul did the stuff for Bungie before Halo. He did Marathon, which was considered Doom for the Macintosh. So if you added up all the people that have listened to our stuff, it dwarfs bands that are theoretically much more conventionally successful. It's fine. I mean, I don't care. I'm not trying to justify anything. It's probably good that things went the way that they did, but I'm hoping. I mean, I love those guys. Okay, Dan and I always had Dan and I were never entirely simpatico, but I always really liked him. But Paul was one of my best friends, and we hit it off from the moment that we met. We're still good friends. In fact, it was kind of funny because we were talking the other night, and we were talking for 2 hours, and after about an hour or so, for whatever reason, Paul switches it to video, and we're both not wearing our shirts. I just started laughing, and he's like, "Is it hot there?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's really hot here." He goes, "Yeah, it's really hot here too." I said, "This does not look good." It's the kind of conversation that you can only have with an old friend, Kajia says Alex Brandon's for original Unreal is an amazing soundtrack too. Yeah, but that's why they went out and got Mike, is because they always wanted to have top-notch stuff. Sam Freeman said, I did software testing for Gears of War. Music was top shelf. Yeah, Mike always had a good ear for things. In fact, that song that I just played, Violate Yourself by Dan, what made me laugh about it was that wah, wah, wah sound was a little bit like the sound that he used in Chiba City Blues, which Mike always called the poomph song, because that Dan had done kind of the lead music line for it, and it was like a poomph poomph sort of thing. I have no idea. Apparently, Dan sent a big box of stuff to Paul recently, so hopefully we're gonna get to hear that again when we get. If he digs it out, I'll definitely play it, or maybe remake it or something. But anyhow, but that's fun. So anyhow, I said I was going to play something. Now I did play this before, but this was not the final version. Okay. Skydog says Zoomers are into video game music and 90s soundtracks. My oldest knew about Psykosonik. Well, it's good to know we're not entirely forgotten, but I'm hoping that at some point in time in the next year or two we'll get some new tracks out. But Vox, do you deny you sang lead in Tears for Fears? Actually, it's kind of funny because when they came out and that album came out, I remember my friend's mother saying that she thought I looked a lot like one of the guys in Tears for Fears, and then her friend goes, "No, I think he looks more like the guy in Wham, like Andrew Ridgeley." So that was my closest I got to a doppelganger, I guess. The world is ready for a Psykosonic resurgence. Maybe. I'm not sure, because you see, this is my honestly. I mean, I hope you guys like this. I know some of you have already heard it because it's up on Unauthorized. It's not finished. It's finished. It's not professionally mastered. My master guy is ready to do it, but I've told him he's not to do it yet. I have no idea, like, even how I'd release it. I mean, it's not a Soul Sigma song. It's probably not a Vibe Patrol song. I don't think we'll turn it into a Psykosonic song, but who knows? Regardless, this is, in my opinion, my stairway to heaven. I mean, for 30 years I've wanted to do a techno epic, and something that starts slow and almost acoustic, and then builds, and then just gets completely insane. And so the version that I played before, it wasn't right. I tried, what I did is I actually spliced things together in my digital audio workstation, and it was forcing it, and that was wrong. And so I've learned to be a bit more patient, to not try to rush things. If it's not working, it's not working. Just leave it for a while, come back to it. So that's what I did. And so let's go ahead, bear with me. I mean, obviously, if you're not into the music thing, you are excused. But this is The Long and Lonesome Highway, The Long and Lonesome Skyway. And it is based upon a William Gibson short story that I really like. It's a short story called Hinterlands. And as you know, I've been transforming some different Gibson stories into music. In fact, I could probably do an entire album that way. But this is the only one that I've actually... Well, no, that's not true. Chiba City Blues I did go ahead and finish. This is the other one that I finished. And like I said, for me, it's exactly the kind of techno epic I've wanted to do for 30 years. And so let's go ahead and have a listen together. And feel free to share your thoughts. I don't get offended about this stuff. I mean, my own family has no interest in this stuff, so it doesn't bother me when other people don't either. Okay.
Smartphone static in the skull, agony sparks, angry memes, Paris burning when they pull me deep from Delta's sultry dreams. 50,000 voltage spike waves inside space-time's gentle sway, while the orbit slowly drains, my power fails, and I drift away. Heaven spins in false gravity, Brazilian vines and morning light, mirrors spin on schedule, see the starshine shimmers burning bright. Science in the clearing waits for damaged cargo coming home. 80 years deep beyond the gates where the techno spirits roam. On the long and lonesome skyway, where the broken vessels go,
So that is my techno epic. And, you know, sometimes, you know, you do things and you don't get, you know, usually you do things and it just doesn't turn out the way you want. And that's just one of the few times that I've done something that I've just been truly happy with, truly satisfied with, you know. I mean, I like a lot of the tunes that I've been able to do. I mean, that's Kajia says solo with the harmonics is awesome, but the second one is even better. Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of funny because I was just like, wow, this is out of hand. Then I was like, as a member of Booster Patrol, it is appropriate for it to have two solos. Absolutely. And, you know, it's, I mean, that would not be an easy song for any band to play live, because it's just so big and so epic. I think my favorite just little thing about it is the way that after the second solo, it sounds like it's coming to an end, which it is, but then all of a sudden there's just this big wave of sound that comes in for four bars before it fades out. Just one last little whoosh, you know, like the wave that you're not expecting. And so anyhow, hope you enjoyed it. Don't actually care if you did or not, to be honest. Somebody said, there's a funny comment here that said something about starts highly successful band but didn't want to tour or be famous. Epitome of Sigma. Well, the funny thing was, it wasn't just me. None of the guys in the band wanted to tour. You know? Sam Freeman says, I think Baby Metal could do a nice cover of it. Well, I mean, yeah, they've got the instrumentation. You know, they've got multiple guitarists that could handle both of those solos. But that's not very common. I mean, you know, as good a guitarist as John is, and he's very good, I'm confident he could do the first one. I'm not entirely confident that he'd be able to do the second one. E-Rock could do it. But you know, but Psykosonic, Soul Sigma, Bi Patrol, me, I mean, we've never been about the music as performance thing. You know, it's just not it's not the way that I look at it. I've done it. I mean, you know, I have absolutely, despite the fact that I'm not a very good musician, I you know, obviously I would have been better if I devoted a lot more time to playing it than I have. But, you know, I've played at First Avenue. We absolutely blew the doors off at First Avenue. You know, it was, we played at Glam Slam and we were a huge hit at Glam Slam. You know, I know what it's like. It's fun. It's cool. But I barely remembered even the experience of being on stage. It's just so, because you've practiced it so much, and then all of a sudden, like, the moment arrives, and then it's gone. And I mean, I've told the story before of, you know, there was a girl who was literally, you know, trying to get my attention and stuff at the Glam Slam show, and I ran into her the next day, and she didn't recognize me. It was kind of like, you know, I just said hello and in kind of an amused way, and she just kind of looked at me like, "Who the hell are you?" And I just sat there and laughed because, you know, the dichotomy between who you are on stage and who you are off stage. You know, for me, I'm the same person. And so, but obviously people don't perceive you that way. And so I just didn't, and it wasn't just me. None of the guys, with the possible exception of Mike, really got into the performance for the performance's sake. we put together a good show. We put together, I mean, we did special mixes of, especially Welcome to My Mind. The Welcome to My Mind was the live mix was great because it was like a combination of the metal mix with the fast techno mix, but it kind of started out like we basically put 3 different mixes together. Silicon Jesus was crazy because we started with a slower, it's still a pretty quick BPM, but we increased the BPM by about 16 from the beginning to the end of the song. And so the crowd was just absolutely wrung out and exhausted because they didn't realize that they were like picking up the pace as they were dancing, because we brought it along gradually. So we were doing some interesting stuff performance-wise, but the amount of work that went into that was like, why don't we just write another song? I would rather have another good song done than have some tweaked version that we could play live. Now, obviously, when you've got musical geniuses like Prince, guys who are jam bands like the Blues Traveler and whatever, that's different. That's more the traditional rock and roll. Every performance is different. Grateful Dead, of course, being the ultimate example of that. But that was never what I was into. It was never what the other guys were into. And so, I think that this era of, there's so much music out there that trying to work on your career, trying to build your career, and live off of your music, is just irrelevant. Now it's just do whatever you want to do, make it however you want to make it, and put it out there. And if people want to listen to it, that's cool. And if they don't, that's cool too. Paul likes to say that it's actually the ultimate punk ethos, because to Paul, the punk ethos was not about not knowing how to play your guitar or striking a pose or shrieking curses at the top of your lungs. It was always about doing it yourself. And now with AI, you've really got the ultimate do-it-yourself system. But if you bring it together with people who are skilled and people who are good, then you can really reach the next level. And that's what I'm hoping that we'll be eventually doing, with Paul and with Psykosonik. So anyhow, thanks for indulging me. Hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night here on Unauthorized with Archaven Nights. JDA and I will be doing that, and it should be a good time. I'm Vox Day, and this is the Darkstream.